Hello, my astrology friends. This is Lada from astrolada.com. And today I want to share with you a video that I made 7-8 years ago for my course, Astrology of Relationships and Compatibility. But I want to do you a little bit of an intro. What more I've learned in the last 7-8 years. It's part of Astrolada Speak that I'm sharing this course and a few other Astrology of Relationship and Compatibility courses, which are a package that I'm offering this whole summer. And anyone who takes this package at a reduced price I'm going to coach them once per month. We're going to have extra classes where they can have questions and ask. But otherwise, we want to talk right now about karmic relationships. And in Western astrology, we have different ways to show if a relationship will be karmic. For example, a lot of hard aspects between Pluto and personal planets from one person to another, or Saturn interaspect, synastry aspect from the chart of one person to the other, or very powerful contacts between the North Node and South Node of one person, usually especially with the South Node shows past karma of one person to the personal planets of the other. But in Vedic astrology, and in my course, I teach both Western and Vedic compatibility, the most important techniques that I've seen work over 15, 20 years of doing astrology. But in Vedic astrology, they could say very quickly if a relationship would be karmic or no, just based on the constellation of the moon. And they have different ways of compatibility, but this is the most important technique in Vedic astrology, which is called karmic rope, like a rope that you're tied with someone. And if it happens that the lunar constellation, they have 27 constellations that are actual constellations that the moon is passing through when you're born, rather than the signs that we use in the West. The sky is separated into 27 constellations. And you can find out, of course, by going to my birth chart calculator. I'll put a link below and checking what constellation is your moon in. They have funny names using Vedic astrology, like Uttara, Bhadra, Dhanishta, and so on. But I'm putting in the description below here, this video, all the different, there are 5 ways that your moon nakshatra can fall in, 5 body parts. It can be in the head, in the neck, in the navel, in the hips or thighs, and in the feet. So you check what your nakshatra is, the moon constellation of the moon we need only. Check out in my birth chart calculator. And then go and see which body which body part it corresponds to from under the description of this video. And then check your partners. And if they happen to fall in the same body organ, say you have a nakshatra that is falls in the head, and your partner also has a nakshatra that falls in the head, as long as it's a different one than yours, then you have one of the most difficult combinations for karmic relationships in Vedic astrology. That's one of the main things they would look at. If it's from the same nakshatra, say you have the same nakshatra, Aslesha, and your partner has Aslesha, that is not considered a karmic rope. Only if it goes from one constellation in the same body organ to the other, because they're calling it Raju Dosha. There's too much of the same energy, let's say. This is what it means. And the most difficult one will be the one in the head, the neck, and then the navel, and after that, the thighs, and the least difficult in the feet. But each of those, if you have a relationship with someone, and I had my first 3 important life relationships with karmic role, you're really tied to a lot of difficulties. And usually these are stepping stone relationships. They're the so-called karmic loves. They're passionate, they're intense, they're memorable, but they're not the ultimate one because there's too much drama. There's challenges. It's the one that makes you grow. It's one that you have a karmic promise to challenge each other in some way, to you owe each other something that you have to complete or fulfill. You have promised souls to each other to do certain lessons to each other. But sometimes such marriages, I've seen them last 10, 15 years even. but always with a lot of drama in them, always with a lot of constant upheavals here and there. And I'm finally, since the last 7 years, married to someone without karmic rope, and it's such a difference. So I wanted to fill in on that video, that now that I have finally experienced without karmic rope, it's very different than a relationship with karmic rope. So check out this video. I speak about each of the different karmic ropes, what they mean, because if you have karmic rope at the head, it's very bad for the man, at the throat for the woman, usually at the navel for the men, and so on. It can even have health issues. It can even create health issues for some couples because of the mental stress. And the moment you leave that relationship or it ends, it's and we're talking here romantic relationships, the moment you end that relationship, things come down. But as long as you're in a karmic relationship, there will be always some channel, and I give you some remedies and some advice how to navigate a karmic rope relationship. You cannot escape it. You have to experience it, no matter how much you try to avoid it. Usually, if you have indication, I show you if in your natal chart there are indications to have karmic rope relationships in that video. Enjoy it. I think the knowledge is like the only thing I wanted to add on is that finally I've been in a non-rope relationship, karmic rope. So it's so peaceful. It's so much nice. There is emotionally, it's so much easier. But anyway, check this. This is out of 60 hours of love course that I'm recommending for you that is discounted now. Check that video, and there are also courses included, the Victor and so on, that and a few other amazing astrologers, that ultimate combo for learning relationship astrology that I recommend. And if you join us, we'll do lives and so on to answer your questions. So enjoy the videos. Let's find out if you have, and that's not the only way to see if you have karmic relationship, but that's one of the most powerful ways. There are two other techniques for karmic relationships in Vedic astrology, which I only reveal in the course, but that's probably one of the most painful, or let's say one of the most eye-opening and consistently giving results methods. So enjoy. The next big blemish between the moon constellations, again, that can happen, which create like very different emotional needs, or creates very different clash of energy somehow. This is the second biggest blemish, and it's called, my teacher has called it misfortunes. It sounds more gruesome than abstractions, but actually it's the lesser blemish. And I also call it karmic rope. In ancient astrology it's called karmic rope. Rope like a rope. Because those two people, if they have karmic rope between their moons, they're like tied together. They're tied together to misfortunes, to difficulties. They're tied together to drama. If you have obstruction, it's almost impossible for the relationship to even happen. But if you have misfortunes, many relationships happen when they have like karmic rope between them, this is basically, you can again see it from the table. I don't know them by heart. You have to check them. I have a computer program that calculates this for me, but you can check them from the table that I've given you. For example, I know that my constellation, Magha, has a karmic rope with the constellation, with a few constellations. It has karmic rope with Revati. It has karmic rope with Aslesha. It has karmic rope with another, was it Moola? Jyeshtha. So it's a few. You can have karmic rope. Your moon constellation can have a karmic rope with a few different constellations out of the 27 lunar constellations. And this is a big blemish. I mean, it allows the relationship to happen, but it creates very dramatic relationships. And I can be blessed when I learned this technique to have all my girlfriends in relationships that have a karmic rope between them and their partners, to observe it, how it's happening. And usually such relations are highly passionate. Usually such creations are, as it says, karmic, very strongly karmic. And it's some karma that has to be completed. It's some karma that
And usually people who fall constantly in karmic rope relationships, they have one of those difficult combinations like Venus with Rahu. Remember the last video of, Venus with Rahu, Venus with Saturn, Rahu in the 7th, Ketu in the 7th, Venus conjunct the Sun. One of those things that of Venus in Virgo in the 9th divisional or 7th divisional chart, usually it's one of those, or the 7th Lord with Rahu, Ketu, Saturn, all those things we talked in that video. Usually those people tend to attract relationships with misfortunes, with a karmic rope, more karmic relationship. Remember how Rahu, Saturn, and Ketu are karmic planets, and it doesn't mean you have to tell them, get out of this relationship, you have misfortunes. Well, they have to go through that. If you have already indications that you'll be in karmic relationship, you'd often attract karmic rope relationship. And let me give you an example. I have Rahu in the 7th, and I have, Venus with the Sun. So I have 2 indications for difficult relationships already. And all my relationships have had karmic ropes. All my 3 important relationships that I lived with, with my husband, now I have karmic rope. And it's not easy at all. What happens when you have karmic rope? It's drama. Everything goes well, say for 10 days, 2 weeks, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, these people make a mountain out of molehill for the smallest things. They can spiral into a negativity, into a vortex of negativity that spins them. The emotional reactions are so strong towards each other. These are the drama relationships. These are the roller coaster relationships. These are the relationships that there is there are 4 types of karmic ropes. One is at the feet. Basically, imagine 2 people tied together with a rope at the feet. The second one is at the hips. Third one is at the pelvis, I think. Pelvis? Something here. At the hips, navel, sorry, not pelvis. At the hips, at the navel. And the 4th one is at the throat, at the neck. So basically there are 5. And the 5th rope that can happen between 2 moons is at the head. And basically these increase in difficulties according to the higher, body organ. This is the easiest one. And my moon is in a nakshatra that only can cause karmic rope at the feet. But people who have the higher number it gets, the higher body organ gets. At the hip it gets more difficult. At the navel more difficult. At the neck super difficult. At the head almost impossible as well. And still such relationship can happen, but they're tumultuous, they're turbulent. And each one gives a little bit more difficult result, because imagine being, for example, if you have karmic rope at the feet with someone, it's like you're trying to do something while your feet are tied up together. So like your plans go awry. You try and do something together, you always like clash with each other, you always, you start trying to get up and go, and you can jump for a bit and you can limp for a bit, and then you see another obstacle, you have to jump over an obstacle or over something, and you're like, you do it so poorly. When you're met with misfortunes, there is often such poor capacity to overcome this misfortune. There is like, it becomes a huge drama. It's blown out of proportion. Emotionalism flies into the air, a lot. But it's still the easiest, and they say that when there is karmic rope at the feet, the 2 people will wander forever. And I've seen this with me, with a couple of friends who have this with their partners. Well, basically they move a lot. They basically, and it's true, you can see it literally, like the ancient book says, they cannot find a place where they feel centered and they belong to. For example, me and my partner, I am from a different country, he's from a different country, we live in England, and his career is supposed to take him all over the world, so we'll be traveling probably. And this, especially in the past, was a big blemish, because it's like you're always ungrounded in some way. You're always moving from one place to another. And actually, this is what might save such a relationship, if they keep moving from one place to another. Because if they get too sedentary, stay in the same life, in the same place, this rope at the feet just gets very, frustrating, and the dramas get bigger and bigger. And it's emotional roller coaster, to be honest. And such people, when it's at the hips, at the hips is, as far as I remember, it said that there will be poverty here if it's at the hip. And it's not always literally. Sometimes I've seen it when there is when there's karmic rop at the hips, that these people keep meeting misfortunes which are connected to material resources, to money, to such things. But it's not always. There is again a clash of ideas, a dramatism, how they react to each other very strongly. And sooner or later, one of the people gets tired. I mean, I've seen relationships for 10 years carry on with those karmic ropes. And even I myself married someone with karmic rope. When it's meant to happen, it's meant to happen. But you need to give an advice to such people who are in relationship with karmic rope. If it's at the early stages, you can, if they ask, should I go in this relationship, you can tell them, get the hell out of there unless you want a lot of drama. But if they're meant to be in this relationship, they cannot escape it. They'll try, they'll break up, come back together. They'll have to experience it. And after that, I'll tell you how you can overcome those karmic ropes. So how you can more consciously deal with them. But let me go through the feet. Through the feet, there might be a lot of wandering. The two people not being able to, make plans together. To their plans go awry. They might literally wander and be like foreigners in different countries, moving from one place to another, change a lot. My best friend is married to someone. They have this karmic rope, and it's not even cancelled. There is a way for cancellation for this, but it's very complex to explain. And theirs is not cancelled at all. So since they've been together for 5 years, she's changed 25 places of living in 7 countries. Oof. And now the last time she moved again to the place where he lives. And I guess that's how they deal with the relationship. But it's always very turbulent. At the hips, usually on the outer level, which does not always manifest on the outer level, might be financial issues, misfortunes that they overcome. And often when they encounter some financial issues, they become too much of a big problem. If they didn't have it, everyone encounters financial problems or material problems. But if they don't have a karmic rope, they deal with it with less emotional drama. And it's not that the people are emotionally not healthy. It's just that's how their energies work. You can't do anything about it but put consciousness and try to give try not to react like a nightmare to the person. And I'm naturally very sweet person, but every time I've been in a relationship with someone, I have a karmic rope at the feet, I become very extreme. I become more for example, if someone else did this to me as my partner, I would not at all feel upset. But when my partner does it, it becomes so much more of an emotional issue. And at the navel, often the navel is connected to, I think, to creativity. And they say, your children will die. This is not true. Your children will not die, But what happens, this is the ancient books. What happens is that your creative impulses clash and your creative ideas clash. So there's almost like competition between you. When someone presents to the person an idea of how they see the future or what they want to create, what they plan for the future or something they want to create, the other person totally does not approve of it. The other person has totally different ideas, so they cannot meet face to face again. So this creates often 2-3 weeks, everything is okay, then they start arguing on something. The other one might feel unappreciated in their creative, creative projects. And when you have this often, sometimes I've even seen it, people cannot even have children. They cannot co-create together something. It's not, but I've seen people have children with karmic rope at the navel. But often the biggest arguments and difficulties come across how to raise those children, around how their creative impulses can be channeled productively. There is a clash of energy there. And the children are our creativity. Children are what we create at the basis level. So there can be a lot of disharmony, a lot of drama around this. Or if it's not about the children, about the goals, about, anything which inspires a person that they want to create, the other one might rebuff it or does not meet them at the right place. So this gets very hard. At the neck is here. The neck is our ability to turn our head and make decisions. Imagine being tied to the neck with another person. They say when there is this happens, the woman will die. It's not this, it's just that when there is a karmic rope at the neck, the woman suffers more. Definitely, usually it's the woman who leaves first, it's the woman who starts withering because of the arguments, because of the drama. The woman feels she doesn't have choices. The choices that are presented to her, she is not happy with them. For example, my best friend is married to someone, they have karmic rope at the neck. It's been a very tumultuous relationship, and she's the one who wants out of the relationship. She loves her partner. Usually these karmic rope relationship, because they're karmic, there's a lot of love, there's a lot of passion, there's a lot of intensity, but there is often some misfortune, some big blockage there, and she feels like I'm tight here. And I never told her she had a karmic rope at the neck. She says, I feel like I'm tight here and I cannot move and I cannot take a decision. All the decisions her husband presents to her, all the options, she's not happy with them. For example, he says, let's go and live in this country. And she's like, she goes there and she feels like, oh, I'm dying, I don't like it here. Or he tells her, well, we can either live in this country, but we cannot live where you want, because of this or this, because of business. If they didn't have this karmic rope, he would present to her decisions, because the neck is how we turn our head to see options in our life. If you're tied to the neck, you feel like you don't have options, like you're almost, pinned to the wall and you cannot make a decision. You're like imposed on. The options that are given to you are not any of those you want. And it's usually the woman who suffers then. It's usually the woman who might have enough and leave sooner or later. So this is, think about it. Karmic rope here, what it is. Here at the navel, it's your creative processes. You are tied there. You have clash there. At the feet, you can't get and do things together. It's like you're wandering a lot. At the neck, it's this, and because it's at the neck, it's a higher body organ. It gets harder. It gets more hard, than the lower body organs. And then if it's at the head, it's very hard. Then the man will die, they say. The man doesn't die, but starts suffering, might even create physical illness sometimes. And my best friend, when she went into a relationship with this person, and he's an amazing person, he has amazing capacity for relationships, still doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because they have a karmic rope at the neck from their moons. And it's basically this person, she got ill for 4 or 5 years since she met him. And she's finally starting to recover now, but because she said in her heart that if she finds someone else, she would, allow herself to be with this other person and, start a new relationship. Because of all the options she's being presented with are killing her inside. Sorry, just wanted to check if we're not running out of space. So this can create physical illness even in the woman. And when it's at the head, this can create a physical illness even with the man. And it's almost nothing you can do about it. No matter how conscious person you are, no matter how high capacity for relationships you have. If you have high capacity for relationship, you would try and accommodate. You'll be nice and, you'll make it less of a painful experience for both of you. But you would still suffer this dramatic, reaction to each other, this constant drama in the relationship. I think Vanessa Paradis and Johnny Depp have one of those. I think it was at the feet. So it was the weakest one. They were in marriage about 10 years or something. And when they separated, they both said that it was a nightmare. It was so difficult being together. It was painful. Usually such relationship, when they end, they might have had a lot of passion, a lot of love, but there is pain there, there is a lot of pain. And when it's at the head, usually it's the man that suffers. Imagine being tied with a rope at the head. Usually it is that the man taking decisions, because the head, you take decisions with it. With the neck, you choose the options. You turn your head around, I want this or this, and you're tied and you can't do it. With the head, you can't even make up your mind. Usually one of the partners can be inconsistent when it's at the head. They make up their mind, they change their mind for something. It's probably the most difficult one of all, having this one. They start acting on something and then the person changes their mind and goes the other way, so it creates a big drama. If you didn't have this, even if the person changed their mind and started doing something else, or could not take a decision, the other person would not make such a drama out of it. He would say, oh, it happens. But with these people, they constantly are faced with this misfortune. Constantly, okay, they overcome one misfortune, 2-3 weeks later, out of the blue, again it comes. So with this thing, I've seen it. Sometimes it can go for 1 or 2 months. Everything is perfect. It goes well, especially if there are no difficult transits, influences. But the moment one small transit, like a Mars transit, or Saturn transit comes, or an eclipse, everything spirals out. Or Uranus transit, or a Pluto transit, every time those relationships get too dramatic. And look, even I'm the astrologer who knows this, who've observed it, who knows that, it's so hard to be in a relationship with karmic rope. But even I could know I chose a husband with karmic rope, because I've never been presented by the universe with other options. I've never been given a man who did not have a karmic rope with. Or I've been given 1 or 2 who I could not be out of different reasons, like the obstruction with one of them, or with another because of it just, the feelings never develop there, and I always get pulled for some reason, because I have difficult already indications for difficult relationships, into misfortune, into relationships with karmic ropes. I guess that's part of my destiny, so I'm not resisting it anymore. So you don't go saying to such people, well, unless you're looking for arranged marriage, then tell them, well, don't do that unless you want a lot of drama. But most relationships nowadays, when you're a Western astrologer, they're based on feelings and love. And when there is feelings and love, often these people get attracted to resolve some karmic problem, some karmic rope, and usually until the karma runs out, they cannot disconnect each other, untie each other from this relationship. And when does the karma runs out? Usually the karma runs out when one of them can no longer do this, or when one of them feels like, they reconcile in their heart, they forgive the other person, they no longer react so intensely to the other person. Basically, the moment you resolve the karmic rope, which sometimes might take 10, 15 years, this is when you either feel like exhausted, I can no longer do this drama, and this exhaustion makes you stop reacting so violently, makes you stop reacting so dramatically. And usually this is when the relationship is dissolved, is allowed to be separated in some way. And usually people who are in karmic rope relationships, these are not the ultimate relationships always. These are relationships on their path to them finding someone who they can, these are teaching relationships. These are relationships in which you learn. These are relationships in which you learn maybe how to, do relationship, how to control your emotions more, how to exhaust some karma, to pay off some karma. Again, I said people with karmic rope relationship often have one of those indications, like Sun with Venus, like Saturn in the 7th, Rahu or Ketu in the 7th, or Rahu or Ketu, with Venus or with the 7th Lord, all of those combinations that I talked about. And usually, obviously I'm learning my lessons very slowly, because look, I'm on the 3rd karmic rope relationship, but this is the best one out of the 3 so far. And usually when the karma is resolved, and might take a few years. So usually when a karma is resolved, as we said, the relationship parts, the relationship ends, so the person is presented with a relationship which is way more compatible. And if the person never learns those lessons, they can get attracted to another karmic rope relationship, or carry on with this karmic rope relationships till they mature emotionally, how to deal with such intense emotions. And again, I say, every small problem becomes a big drama for karmic rope relationships. People who don't have karmic rope relationship can deal much more objectively with a small problem than people that they encounter, than people who have between them karmic rope relationships. And they can be the most objective person in life, they can be the most mature person in life, but they encounter someone they have karmic rope with, and they start reacting totally, partially, totally lose themselves in feelings, and lose themselves in lack of objectivity, and they make mountains out of molehills. Honestly, these people argue for the smallest things. If you've observed people with karmic rope relationship, you'll be shocked at the things that they get so strongly upset about. And what is the advice I can give you after being such a specialist in karmic rope relationship, having had all of mine with those. What is the advice to do? You need to cut the rope. Imagine being tied up with someone. Imagine being tied up as it is with a karmic rope. So you're in each other's energy. Everything is okay. We're watching a movie. Your partner says something that, for example, like, oh, you forgot to throw out the rubbish. I can give you one of my examples. And everything you've just been loving and kissing him and telling him how much you love him, or the other way around. All of a sudden, they tell you something so small and you lose it. And you totally get negative. You totally get upset. Instead of lashing out of them, or like my partner always tries, let's discuss it. I cannot. While you're in a karmic, once you get emotional with someone you're in a karmic rope relationship, you can discuss it once you don't feel emotional. But once you're feeling so out of whack and so, once you get into the vortex of the feelings of the karmic rope, when you try to discuss them, the rope gets shorter and shorter and shorter, and it gets more painful. So you become less and less objective. You become more hurtful and more pained to the other person. So instead of trying to solve it on the moment when you're feeling emotional, just leave. At the beginning, it used to take me with my partner 1 or 2 days till we, for us to calm down so we can discuss something rationally without the emotions and, without the drama. Now, after 5 years, it takes us 20 minutes. I found how to do it. Basically, instead of arguing with the person, cut the rope. Get out of the room. Go out for a walk for 10 minutes. Go and have a cigarette outside. Go to the shop, buy something, or go in the other room, watch a movie, or go in the kitchen, cook something to eat. Or if you cannot, if you have to stay in the same room, just be quiet for a bit, but don't sulk and say, that's it, I'm not talking to you. Like I often do this, like I give the silent treatment, but say, I just need 10, 15 or 20 minutes. Usually sometimes the more you're together, the shorter the time gets, because you learn how to overcome that. But tell yourself, just let's talk about this in 20 minutes. Watch something funny, do something else. Disconnect your energy for a little bit. I usually go in the other room. And in 20 minutes, when you feel better, or sometimes you might need 2-3 hours, come back and talk with your partner. Then you'll be able, when you're out of the intensity of the feelings, to make sense of it. But when you're in the intensity of the feelings, cut the rope. And have less dependent life, like have more independent lives, not codependent. People with karmic ropes, relationships, if they have such a relationship, they cannot do codependent. Even having different bank accounts can help. Having different set of friends, different hobbies, different interests, so you're not constantly in each other's energies and, this karmic rope getting active there. So if you happen basically to have your moon nakshatras falling in the same body organ, like in the feet, hips, navel, neck, or the head, there is the presence of karmic rope. And my best advice for you is, when you get angry or upset with each other, or when some drama comes back, give each other some time, but be loving in this way. Say to your partner, please, I would need 5 minutes, or I need 20 minutes, or I need to go somewhere, or just don't try to resolve it on the spot, because the rope will get shorter and shorter, and the whirlwind of drama gets stronger and stronger. And another advice, be more independent. Codependent relationships, when you have misfortunes, gets worse. If you rely too much on your partner, if you're dependent on them somehow, whether financially or too much emotionally, it gets much more complex. If you have more separate lifestyles, even if you have a separate bedroom that we can retreat in from time to time, is a good, thing. Or if you have like separate friends, different hobbies, it's also quite helpful, Yes, so basically it's best that the moon nakshatras, the moon constellations, fall in different body parts. And the higher the number gets, if they get in a higher body organ, the more complex it becomes, the more difficult, the more intense it becomes. And and again, I repeat, the ancient book says, okay, this is the second biggest blemish possible. But if two people really love each other, they can work through this. It will be much harder if their nakshatras fell in different body organs. But still, if they fall in the same body organ, basically it's karma. These are karmic relationships. They have to learn how to handle these issues that are thrown at them all the time. And it's, to be honest, again, the person should not blame themselves when they're in such relationships. The person should not think that they're not good enough or that they're unhealthy somehow, because this is just how the energy clash. It's more like fate puts you in this situation, and outer circumstances present a lot of difficulties to you. So you can learn, these are the relationships, the karmic relationships are the relationships that you grow the most through, that you develop the most through, even because they're the most painful. And usually they're stepping stone relationships, unless the people are quite mature and they're able to learn how to deal with this, this very much clash of energy between them, and how to disperse this drama. But sometimes very few people, can do this. Just very healthy people, emotionally very patient people can do it. But still, such relationship can happen. So this is for it. Try and make sure that you are more independent from each other, that you cut the rope, basically, that you take a step back, become more objective, and then have a conversation and try to resolve it when you're not feeling so hot-headed. Thank you. But what happens if two people have their moons in the same lunar constellation, in the same nakshatra? It happens sometimes. And there is a bit different rule here. Because when they're in the same nakshatra, the same constellation, they would always fall in the same body organ. Because, it's the same, it's the same. But it's not always a failure immediately. It does not always mean karmic rope and misfortunes. So there are a few of the nakshatras that can get along very well if they're people from the same nakshatras. For example, Magha is like that. For example, I forgot them. I'm giving them at the table for you on the basically on the manual. You can see the ones that get along well. Basically, if someone has Magha nakshatra, moon in Magha nakshatra, and moon in Magha nakshatra, or moon in I think Revati was also there. Because these are nakshatras which are more relationship friendly, they're more easy to get along with. So people from the same nakshatra, from those first number, which are indicated in the in the manual, even if they have the same nakshatra, they have karmic role, but it's so much easier, they can get along much better. If the nakshatra, there is a number of nakshatras which fall in the second group, which are decent. There will be, let's say, half of the difficulties of the misfortunes that we talked about. Half of the intensity of the karmic role. They can still make it. It's decent. It's not going to be as easy, but it can still is achievable. But there is a third number of nakshatras. Two people have the same moon in the same constellation. Like if someone has their moon in Moola, and their partner has their moon in Moola, very turbulent nakshatra. If they're in Bharani as well, is very turbulent. They enumerated the three ones that are very difficult. If, I know someone who have a relationship with both their moons in Moola. I think also Shatabishak and Dhanishta, and they were the more turbulent, more extreme nakshatras. That's why having the same moon constellation there, it's very, very hard. Like the fullness of the karmic rope is fully blown and manifested there, because they're not so easy to get along. Such nakshatras are naturally not so easy personalities, so to speak. Such lunar nakshatras. While the ones that fall in the first group, if people have from the same nakshatra, the same moon sign, because of the sweetness of their character, because of more easygoingness of their character, it will be much more, more compatible. The misfortunes are almost, the karmic rope is almost not present. So, thank you.